This is a knife from Tops Knives. It's the Fieldcraft by Brothers of Bushcraft. Usually it's just referred to as the Tops B.O.B. It's well suited to tackle a wide variety of tasks. The blade thickness on this is 3/16 of an inch. That's pretty thick, but because it's only a 4.5 inch blade, it handles very well and can be maneuvered and worked with for some of the more detailed carving tasks. So I've been really impressed with it, with how beastie it is, but then also how gentle it can be on some of those smaller, more detailed work tasks. The sheath comes with a ferro rod with 2 magnesium bars on it. It fits very snug in there. It also comes with a whistle, which I detached so it wasn't dangling around on it. The Kydex sheath itself has good retention. I didn't have any problems with it. Metal clip on the back, and that clip also swivels so you can, depending on how you want to hold it on your gear. The handle, this one is the black linen micarta. I did get this knife wet to see how the grip would hold up. It actually gets more grippy when it's wet. There's some exposed tang here at the back end, which allows you to be able to hit things with it or do whatever without damaging your handle. There's a lanyard hole, very generously sized, which is nice, so it'll accommodate whatever cordage or rope you have on hand. There's a bow drill divot, one on each side, and that bow drill divot does clear the clip on the blade, so you can use it easily without having to remove the clip or modify the sheath at all. There are thumb scallops on each side, and the blade, this one is in 1095 high carbon steel. You can also get the Tops B.O.B. in 154 cm steel, so just depending on your preference. The grind on this knife is one of the things that makes this beast of a blade able to handle those more detailed tasks. It is a modified Scandi grind, which is basically means, I mean, you have a high saber right here. The coated portion is all the same thickness of the blades, that 3/16 of an inch, but then it tapers. If it was a true Scandi by modern standards, that edge would go all the way to the final edge of the knife. This one comes all the way down and then terminates in a convex edge. So high saber, Scandi-ish edge, and then a convex edge at the end. That convex edge allows your edge to have more steel behind it, which makes it able to withstand some of those higher impact tasks like batoning. Or even light chopping. The edge back here, this is not a 90-degree edge. That's something I would have liked to see in this knife, since it seems to be able to be so capable for such a wide variety of tasks. But right here on the tip of the blade, that actually does make a 90-degree, and there's exposed steel there that's not coated, and so you can strike the ferro rod with that. The Tops B.O.B. also has this feature down here at the bottom. It's exposed, it's kind of filed out of the exposed tang here, and that can be used to strike the ferro rod. That's what that's designed for. I just never got real good with it. I messed around with it for a little bit, and I did get a fire going. So maybe with some practice I could figure out kind of how that's intended to be used. But this portion of the spine up here at the tip works beautifully, and I prefer that method anyway because it allows me to use the ferro rod in a variety of different ways, whether I'm pulling the ferro rod or pushing the knife, floating the ferro rod or pinning it down. All of those ways work fine as long as I'm using a spine. In terms of edge retention, this particular model of the Tops B.O.B. is 1095 high carbon steel, so part of the nature of that kind of steel is that it's not going to hold an edge for very long. It also sharpens back up very easily. So that's a plus, but you can't expect this high carbon steel edge to hold for as long as some of these super steels. But that doesn't mean that it didn't hold a good edge, and actually it held, for being high carbon steel, it actually surprised me how well it did. And I think some of that might be due to the heat treatment, but I also think that some of it's due to the modified Scandi grind, in particular the convex edge. It allows that edge to be a little more resilient, I think. With any kind of high carbon steel, you kind of have to expect that after a long day's work with the knife, that you're going to need to touch it up at the end of the day. But to put this into perspective, each day that I used this, and I used it a lot, all but one of those days, all I had to do was run it over the strop to bring it back to life. And it's not that it got dull throughout the day, it just wasn't having that same bite that it did at the beginning. So when I got home, I'd run it over the strop a little bit and it brought it right back, and that was all that was needed. The only day that I needed to do pull out my bench stones was when I did the batoning. I did a bunch of batoning, and as you saw, I was using, a lot of that wood was mesquite wood, and it was incredibly hard wood, and there was knots in it. It was just brutal to baton through. And so after that day, I ran it through my bench stones. I used the DMT diamond bench stones. I ran it just a few passes over my fine grit stone, and then finished it off with the extra fine, and then ran it through the strop. That's all that I had to do, even after all that batoning work, and that was after a full day's work of all kinds of other cuts and work that I did with the knife. So yeah, it is a 1095 steel, so it's not going to hold an edge forever, but I do think that maybe because of the heat treatment and also because of this grind, this modified Scandi grind, it's able to hold an edge a little better than your typical 1095 high carbon steel blade. So overall, this knife, I was really impressed with it. It's compact enough that I don't mind having it on me, carrying around with me, but allows me to leave for most trips, it allows me to leave a smaller blade home, because this one does handle those smaller tasks with such ease. And it's large enough to handle most of my bigger tasks. As always, please reach out to me in the comments if you have any questions, anything that I did not answer about the Tops Bob, and I'd love to be able to answer those and get back to you and help you in figuring out if this is a good knife for you or not. So thank you for watching, thank you for your support, and I'll see you next time.